Oh, well, hello, my baby gorillas. And I think we've actually got this up and running, are we? Oh, my goodness, what a palaver that is. Let's just check and see if we got this. This is very exciting stuff. I had 10 likes there before I started. I had to rechange the stream. And now it's just an absolute mess. Let's see if we're on here.
Fitcher is the only fitness mirror powered by motion engine technology that automatically counts your reps, tracks your progress, and provides real-time feedback to help correct your form. It's your personal trainer, your helpful assistant, and your biggest fan. Fitcher is here to help you define your goals and actually...
And now it's just an absolute mess. Let's see if we're on here. Oh my goodness.
Fitcher is the only fitness mirror powered by motion engine technology that automatically counts your reps, tracks your progress.
So we're actually working for a change. Well, hello my baby gorillas. And we've got 2 viewers. I'm not surprised everybody's getting annoyed. Honestly, I swear this is the hardest thing. Get going. Anyway, we are here now. And we are live streaming. And I told you I was going to improve it as well. And this is what I've done. I've improved it to the extent where we have now got green screen. And it's looking fantastic. Green screen. So this is the new improved version. I'm going to keep improving it. I might actually get a virtual studio as well. So first of all, deepest regrets to Andrew Tate, who's been blackballed like myself, Alex Jones, so many of the other great individuals who are on the internet, who the fascists believe that if you don't agree with what their worldview is, that you shouldn't be allowed to speak. And so we all know who the fascists are. They're the people who are trying to deplatform people who they disagree with. And Andrew Tate's just the latest. Obviously, you know about me anyway. I was after Alex Jones. And yeah, I feel for him just now. Being blackballed, it's and he's obviously of mixed ethnicity, so don't think for a minute this cares about your ethnic identity. This is thought policing, regardless of what you look like.
Absolutely, this is worse. This is absolutely insane. This is one of the largest mass slavery exercises in history. What's happening now is nearly unprecedented. You're going to come along to citizens and lock them in their houses. You demand their taxes. You demand they work. You take all their money from them anyway. Now you're going to lock them in their house and not allow them to leave? I thought, where's the freedom? There's zero freedom left. They're attempting to replace freedom with safety. This is what they want to do. Because of men like you, Alex, you're telling the truth. They tried to censor the truth, and it wasn't working. People like you and me are getting the message out. So they said, okay, too many people are waking up. So let's take all of their freedom away, and let's tell them they're not safe unless they completely comply and throw all of their freedom out the window. Because they don't want people thinking for themselves.
That's right.
Wear your mask, stay at home, be afraid. That's all they want of us. They want
That's right.
slaves.
We got to go to break, but the police bow down to Black Lives Matter, burning down buildings. But then if you try to not wear a mask in San Antonio, the police brutally attack you because they've been told to go out and do it. It's disgusting, and they're idiots, and it's wrong. We have from CobraTate.com, Andrew Tate, a really fired up fella on the other side. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Andrew Tate of CobraTate.com is our guest. He is a world champion kickboxer. He's also a successful businessman. And he's a smart guy. His brother's also really smart. Had a lot of fun with him. I believe it was already last Christmas around this time. They were actually here in Texas. We got dinner down at a nice steakhouse back when we weren't wearing masks and we were still quasi-free. This is a globalist revolution against humanity, against men. They admit it. They're letting men into women's sports, saying that they are women. This is a biological attack. They admit it is, and it's so egregious, it's so criminal, and it's really a total assault, a full spectrum move by the corporations to domesticate humanity. That's what it is. The Carnegie Foundation after World War II was tasked by the U.S. government to, quote, end war. And they said, we will end the family, we will end masculinity. But really, that's just so hyper-globalist corporations have no men blocking them, and you get something even worse. That's what history shows. So, Andrew Tate, how do we counter this? How do we resist it? How do we get people deprogrammed and to get them out? I think the men that want to be sheeple would have always been followers. I think it's up to those of us that are leaders to be bold and not even so much spend time trying to convince the sheeple, but to rally the other sheepdogs out there to take on the wolves.
Absolutely correct. And we have to do the best we can to simply not comply. Since this lockdown garbage has started, since this virus has started, I've been to 13 countries. I refuse to put a mask on. If someone says I'm going to call the police, say, okay, call the police. And I don't want to get arrested. I don't want to fight with anybody. So if the police come and they say you must put on a mask, I'll say, okay, I'll put it on for 10 seconds. And when they walk off, I'll take it off again. If everybody made it so difficult for them to enforce these rules that the rules had no weight, it would end overnight. I will not put a mask on unless you get police officers to the venue and force me. Then I will put it on, and the second they leave, I will take it off. And I will continue to do that, and if everyone leaves. And the reason people are complying is not because they're scared of the virus. I say to people in their masks, do you wear a mask at home? Do you wear a mask where you're allowed to not wear a mask? No, you're not afraid of. You're afraid of not complying. That shows your cowardice. You cannot comply with something you know to be false purely out of fear. That is not the masculine attitude towards life. This whole mask escapade is a mark of submission. When you want someone to be submissive, you humiliate them. Making you wear a mask when you go for a piss in a bathroom, but allowing you to take it off to drink, laugh, and kiss whoever's next to you has nothing to do with medical science. It's a humiliation tactic, because if you're humiliated, you're submissive. And the people who are in charge of the world don't want to hide what they're doing anymore. They can't hide it, Alex. There's people like you out there. There's other people on the internet. All of their secrets are coming out. They can't hide it. They killed Epstein in our face. They rigged the election in our face. They no longer want to hide it. Their new tactic is, we won't hide anything. We'll just do it right in their face, and they won't do anything about it. And that's what this whole exercise is linked to. That's what all of this is. They want to just continue to do whatever they want, blatantly, in broad daylight, and everyone be too afraid to do anything about it. That's their master plan.
And again, people think it's a throwback to see aggressive men that are loud and angry. And I bet you and your brother, you're really big, imposing guys, but that's a good thing. That makes me feel secure that humanity's strong and aggressive and smart. And these globalist nerds always associate big and strong with dumb. That's actually not even how it works. And it's up to those of us that are not modern, domesticated, soft people, and who are more caveman-like, which is the stronger attributes. We're getting weaker, not stronger. All the studies show they dig up people in Africa, they dig up people from England 5,000, 10,000 years ago, and the average farmer was stronger than, a top Olympic athlete. We are all degenerating. We need to get back to what we were. We were more intelligent. We live longer if you survive past being a baby. I mean, there's so much going on here. We must rediscover our humanity, celebrate humanity, and that will defeat this post-human world the big corporations are building.
Absolutely. It's absolutely no mistake, and it's completely by design. They tell men, don't be strong, don't be loud, don't have an opinion, don't be aggressive. Just put the mask on. Just stay at home. Just throw your business away. Don't think for yourself. Just comply. I will keep you safe. You don't need freedom. You need safety. You're only safe if you listen to me. You don't need an income. You know what the best stimulus check is? A job. That's what the best stimulus check is. You know what the best safety is for humanity? People out there doing what they need to do. If they really cared about humanity, why haven't they built any new hospitals? Why didn't they keep all the businesses open, ask for $50 a week from each one, and build 200 new hospitals? We could have hospitals all over the world for the cost of this economic downturn. They don't care about us. They don't care. They want slaves who are afraid, who comply, who give away all of their money on demand. That's all they want. It's all they ever wanted. Because if you're in charge of the world, the only thing you enjoy is control. You're above money. You're above sports cars. You're above fancy boats. The only way you can get any kind of buzz in your life is control. And
that's right. And these are from inbred,
survival rate.
And they're from inbred, multi-generational families that are so unhappy on average. Their only happiness is making us miserable because they see a big, vibrant middle class out on their power boats with their hot wives, their healthy children, and the David Rockefellers and Bill Gateses of the world and Prince Charles of the world get pissed about that, and they enjoy trying to have us under their stinking thumbs.
Completely. They don't want us happy. Why would they want us to be happy when they are miserable? That's the last thing they want. They want us in perpetual slavery. That's all they want. And think of the ego trip. If you have a control problem, if you're a power freak, if you're a control freak, imagine the ego trip of saying to somebody, there's a 99% survival rate, but you will give up your business. You will go bankrupt. You will stay in your house and you will not leave. And if you do want to leave, you'll take a random injection that nobody knows the effects of. And you're going to allow us to inject you anyway, even though you do not need it. That is a power trip. That's all that is. It's a power trip for people who are control freaks, because all these people who are in charge of the world enjoy one thing only: control.
Boom! Correct, and boom! What you guys, have we got anybody here? Is anybody here? Can't, nobody's talking just now. Probably everybody's upset that this took so long to get sorted out, but I think we are sorted. Are we still on? Everybody working here? Ha 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 ha. So, what have we got now? Let's hear Georgie Porgie. Georgie Porgie, over to you. And let's hear about Keir Starmer bending the knee to Black Lives Matter, the Marxist organisation, only to find out that Sir Keir Starmer was a Trotskyite, and obviously Trotsky part of the communist takeover of what was Russia, then becoming the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, not quite making it to communism as usual. Come on, Georgie.
Well, I don't know what's going on in the mind of the now Sir Keir Starmer, but I knew him when he
Sir Keir Starmer, the Trotsky.
was a mutant kind of Trotskyite.
Same with Wee Nippy. Wee Nippy's a wee postmodernist.
He's mutated from a former Trotskyite Republican calling for the overthrow of the royal family to a man quite bereft of any political identity at all, except that he is not the former leader of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, except that he is not any of his predecessors as leader of the Labour Party. There is no Labour leader in all the party's history who would have sacked their transport spokesman for showing support for the railway workers.
So, what I've heard, well, let's just continue with this because obviously this is of interest. So let's hear Georgie Porgie again. Go on, Georgie Porgie, over to you.
Despite that 35 years of friendship.
So he's talking about Jeremy Corbyn, Steptoe and Georgie Porgie.
I'm afraid to say that Mr. Corbyn and I are no longer on speaking terms.
I think you should make up. I think it's about time you guys made up.
But that will not change my attitude if he decides finally to break with Keir Starmer and his miscalled Labour Party. I would welcome it. I would happily work with Jeremy Corbyn. You don't have to like somebody in order to work with them.
Well, you had a 35-year relationship. Sometimes hatchets need to be buried instead of in each other's backs, maybe just in the ground.
Crikey, I wouldn't have done much work over the years if I had applied that rubric.
So it's nice that Georgie Porgie is trying to reach out to Jeremy, and I think Jeremy is about to leave the Labour Party and join Georgie Porgie's Worker Party, because it's pointless him setting up another party. He might as well join George because they're de facto very similar politically.
So whilst things will never be the same between Mr. Corbyn and myself, I look forward to joining with him in any development which breaks from a Labour Party that is a substantial part of the problem in Britain and nothing to do with the solution.
So you've heard it here first. So Georgie's obviously put the olive branch out for Steptoe, Mr. Corbyn, sorry. And
to the problem in Britain.
so that's from the Workers' Party. So as you can see, the olive branch went out a number of months ago. This was from 15th of January 2022. So it's now escalating. So let's just see a few more of these. Let me just let's get rid of this one, and let's get rid of that one, and let's get rid of oh no, wait a minute, where is this?
Despite that,
Oh,
30.
hold on, Georgie Porgie, where is that? Oh, I missed that. Let's see, what one, how did I do that? I had it all set out for you guys there, and it's totally disappeared. Let's see. Oh no, that's not it either. George Galloway, and oh,
Work closet.
and where was it? Watch later. George Galloway. And watch later. That's not it. Where did that go? There it is there. Here we go, here we go.
I found it a sad sight to see Jeremy Corbyn say how disappointed he was that the National Executive Committee of the Labour Party, by a decisive margin, had decided to back Keir Starmer's exclusion of Corbyn. Just 2 years ago, the leader of the Labour Party, the most successful electoral leader of the Labour Party in 2017, since 1945 and Clement Attlee's landslide victory, he's now sadly disappointed that his own party will not support his own rights as a member of that party to receive Keir Starmer's whip in the House of Commons. I'm saddened for two reasons. I'm saddened because after 37 years in Parliament as a Labour Member of Parliament, Jeremy Corbyn deserves better than the humiliating treatment that he's receiving from Starmer and now by his own National Executive Committee. But I'm sad for a second reason. What would be achieved by Jeremy Corbyn receiving Keir Starmer's whip? How would that take anybody forward? Least of all Corbyn, who would be seen to be cowed, sitting there under sufferance, able to be kicked out again at will any time that he said or did anything that makes him Jeremy Corbyn. What's the point in being a member of Keir Starmer's Parliamentary Labour Party if the price of it is, as it would be, that you have to go along with every betrayal that Keir Starmer is currently engaged in?
Again from the Workers' Party, there you go, and that's very interesting, isn't it? Very, very interesting. So let's hear some other stuff. Here we go. Here's Georgie Porgie again.
Watch this. I can show you how to get the sweetest deals online when you shop from major retailers like Amazon and Target.
Jeremy Corbyn, then the leader of the opposition's picture, was on a target which British soldiers were being encouraged to fire at. Think about that. Just a couple of years ago, Jeremy Corbyn was attacked, physically attacked. Jeremy Corbyn was the single most exposed to danger figure in this entire country, with no exceptions, not even the royal family. And of course, if you want to talk about mean words, where would I start and where would I end? when the leader of the opposition was a different man to Keir Starmer.
There you go, Georgie Porgie's right into in amongst it there, in amongst it, Georgie Porgie. Hold on, let's hear this one.
Jeremy Corbyn was taken hostage by people who broke his arms, broke his legs, tied them behind his back, worked him from behind and told him to say something
That's a bit kinky.
radically different. And when I pointed that out to so many former friends of mine, they called it disloyalty. As a matter of fact, it was me that was being loyal. And you who were seeking to camouflage that simple truth, to deny it, who were the ones who were being disloyal. I told you over and over again, I would give you my right arm. And I meant it for Corbyn to be the Prime Minister. But I didn't expect it to happen because Labour's betrayal of Brexit, Labour allowing itself to be boxed into a corner as the anti-Brexit party was going to lose them millions of votes in their traditional heartlands, and all to gain Putney and Canterbury. I mean, I know Shakespeare asked the question, for Wales? Well, Wales is a great deal more valuable than Putney and Canterbury. All of that was done for Labour gains in Putney and Canterbury. Just think about that.
Story has it that Georgie Porgie is going to try and stand 620 or 32 candidates in every seat in the UK, unlike the Respect Party that only stood a few. George, I think, has learned from his lessons and is going to stand in every seat. I think that's what's going to happen. And let's see some more.
Creativity can be found everywhere.
Labour is on one level veering towards the cliffs of extremism, and yet on another level, the much more important level.
Let me just check the date on this. When was this? So this was the 1st of October. So this was just coming up for just about a year ago.
About the big things in society, it's moving more and more to the right. So that, for example, Keir Starmer pledged in his leadership campaign that he supported the nationalisation of energy distribution, something that was actually a Butskellite common ground in Britain for many decades after the Second World War. He's reneged on that. In fact, denies that he even ever supported it.
Well, let's be quite clear. Keir Starmer said that he supported common ownership of public goods. Now, to you and I, of course, that means nationalisation. And I'm sure to most of the people tuning in here, whether they're British or across the pond, would take common ownership to mean in the public's hands. But no,
it's not really in the public's hands. That's a misnomer. It's basically in the government's hands. So you're not unless I'm getting shares or direct access for me to actually say who's going to be in charge of it. It's not in my hands, it's in the government's hands. It's basically empowerment of the government, not the individual. This sort of word salad that the left do, that somehow if it's in the government's hands, it's in the public's hands. The public's not the government, the government's the government. If it was in the public's hands, then we would all be shareholders in it, which we're not.
According to Sir Keir Starmer, former Director of Public Prosecutions, a very good grasp of the English language, one would therefore expect and hope. That means something just a little bit different. Doesn't mean nationalisation, doesn't mean public ownership. He can't tell us what common ownership, by his definition, does mean, of course. But yeah, he's completely gone back on that, which is why I think you've got people now being more vocal on the Labour conference floor, coming out against Starmer. It appears to really have shifted back toward that Corbyn-y kind of viewpoint. David Evans at conference yesterday stood up and said, you know, we all have a reason for joining Labour. Do you remember yours? And a whole crowd of people chanted, Jeremy Corbyn, which probably wasn't the response the Blairite General Secretary was looking for.
No, we couldn't get Owen to come on the show, but we did get one of his colleagues, Jenny Chapman, the Member of Parliament for Darlington. She is backing Owen Smith and has been kind enough to come on the radio.
Right, we're not interested in that.
Labour is on one level veering. Jeremy Corbyn was taken hostage by people who broke his arms, broke his legs, tied them behind his back, worked him from behind and told him to say something radically different. And when I pointed that out to so many former friends of mine, they called it disloyalty. As a matter of fact, it was me that was being loyal. And you who were seeking to camouflage that simple truth, to deny it, who were the ones who were being disloyal. I told you over and over again, I would give you my right arm, and I meant it.
I think we've heard this one. Right. So I've heard that Ken Livingstone might be actually joining George Galloway as well.
Biff with fourth form politics, James. Closeness to the issue. It's people I know and love who've suffered from depression and mental illness that make me think what he said and what he did, just at that end refusal to apologise, was...
Were you shocked at what happened this week to Mr. Corbyn?
No, not really, George. I predicted it, in fact, and I indeed was took out a speech, actually, from about 3 years ago, where I made that very point, that it's not really me that they're after, or Ken Livingstone, or Jackie Walker, Mark Wadsworth.
So you heard that, Ken Livingstone. Now, George Galloway used to have the Respect Party, and they only stood one candidate, which seems completely pointless. But I believe that Georgie, Porgie and the Workers' Party are going to stand 632. I think they're selecting, and they're just waiting. They're selecting candidates just now, and they're just waiting for Corbyn to come away from the Labour Party, join the Workers' Party now, head it. He's going to be the figurehead, and that's going to bring other MPs who might be getting kicked out by Sir Keir Starmer. I believe that momentum is going to switch to the Workers' Party, and I believe that trade unions are also going to now switch from the Labour Party to the Workers' Party as well. So this is building momentum. I'll come on to things that point this in this direction as well.
Hundreds or thousands of grassroots members that had been thrown under the bus. Ultimately, what they were about, the enemies of Jeremy Corbyn, were to topple him and to destroy any semblance of a socialist programme within the Labour Party. And what is happening to Jeremy now is in very many ways similar to what happened to me. If you remember, I was suspended, then I was readmitted to the party following a panel of the National Executive Committee who met and went through the accusations and decided to reinstate me. Within 48 hours, I'd been resuspended, but this followed an outpouring of opposition from the large proportion, anyway, of the Parliamentary Labour Party, over 100 Labour MPs and around 50 Labour peers.
So that's what I'm saying. So I think half of them are going to jump ship to the Workers' Party very soon, and that a lot of these will be standing as already existing Labour MPs, but for the Workers' Party under Jeremy Corbyn. So it'll be like a Jeremy Corbyn in the Workers' Party versus Sir Keir Starmer.
had signed a motion to go to the next parliamentary Labour Party meeting calling for the whip to be withdrawn for a year from him.
I believe that a lot of the Labour Party youth are jumping ship as well and joining the Workers' Party.
An inquiry to be mounted into how the tar was reinstated in the first place, and the hyperbole was so intense that the General Secretary decided to resuspend me, and that was then endorsed by the National Executive Committee. And then, as you may remember, Georgie took the Labour Party to the High Court and defeated them in the High Court. Actually, they tried 3 times prior to the High Court hearing to get the hearing delayed. I was calling for an expedited hearing on the grounds that there was likely to be an early election. What their lawyers were arguing in court in 3 preliminary hearings was that there's no evidence that there's going to be a general election. We have a fixed-term parliament now, and Mr Williamson is merely speculating. Obviously, the judge threw it out on each occasion, and on the third occasion, they didn't just throw back out. They actually set a date for the hearing to take place. Within 36 hours, I received a new communication from the party. When I first saw it, I thought they'd seen sense and were going to pull back from the brink, but no, it was to issue me with a third suspension to say, we know you're already suspended, but irrespective of the outcome of that suspension, you will remain suspended because there are these additional new allegations.
Whoa, so they've obviously got an MO for getting rid of people. So when's this? This is what date's this? So we've got this is 2019, that's a bit far off. Or maybe
back in 2017, basically Jeremy Corbyn was the only effective campaigner. Theresa May struggled, Tim Farron was rather hapless, and Paul Nuttall, well, nobody knew who.
So this is Professor Sir John Curtis from Strathclyde University.
Paul Nuttall was. This time, Jeremy Corbyn not only faces the charisma of Boris Johnson, though I grant you it's sometimes a bit of an unguided missile, and his way with words can sometimes get him into trouble, but also Nigel Farage, who's going to be campaigning up and down, and who again is one of the other most charismatic politicians in our politics. So against that backdrop, be aware that Jeremy Corbyn doesn't necessarily have the same relative advantage, but I grant you does have the advantage. The one key attribute that he has as a leader is that he is an effective campaigner. He's a relaxed campaigner. I mean, in the 2017 election, as it were, the longer election campaign went on, the more one got the feeling from Jeremy Corbyn was, I'm quite enjoying this.
Yeah.
And doubtless against that experience, he will start from that backdrop.
So that was quite interesting.
This incredible device.
2006, December 13th, 2019.
It removes 50 times more earwax than cotton swabs and lasts a lifetime.
Colin, I said I'd go back to the texter who asked me what Jeremy Corbyn should do if and when he is re-elected as leader. I think it depends on the other side. If they say, all right, we had a go, then we had a second go, but the members have spoken, we must all now get shoulder to shoulder in the aid of the party, tackle the government, stand up for the workers, stand up for the pensioners, stand up for the children, stand up for the poor, and we must do it behind Jeremy Corbyn's leadership, then of course this whole matter can be brought to a close and can be just a sort of unmentioned secret, like an embarrassing ant. It can be parked somewhere up the stairs and we don't mention it. But if they say, we're going to continue this war by other means, we're going to continue to undermine you at each and every turn, we're going to continue coordinating with the news bulletins, our attacks on you, our resignations, and so on, then there'll have to be a purge. Now, a purge is never a pretty sight, but it's better to purge now than to allow these people to continue their sedition, their subversion, their sabotage, all the way up to the general election. Better that this purge be begun.
if these people intend to continue as they have since last September. Now, I mentioned some names. You don't need to be Einstein to work them out. There are people, rent-a-gobs, that are on every news bulletin that will have them.
George isn't talking about the Tories here. George is talking about other Labour, the Labour Party members.
I've been watching one or two of them this very evening. These rent-a-gob, I'm watching one right now. This...
Oh, you're not talking about me, George.
What's his name? Wes Streeting. A veritable boulevard of treachery.
A boulevard of treachery.
A Champs-Élysées.
A Champs-Élysées.
He is. This Wes Streeting. He's on the television right now, bitterly attacking Shami Chakrabarti, one of the most respected people in this country, just as a means of attack.
Shami Chakrabarti, oh, she's brilliant, aye.
King Corbyn, again. These people will have to go. These people will have to be purged. Now, if I'm back in the Labour Party, I'll help with that.
Well, George, you're not getting back in the Labour Party, and neither's old Steptoe.
Purge.
Purge.
I know a thing or two.
Aye, you're a purger.
About purges.
Purges. She's a wee purger. So, let's see what else you've got, Georgie. Georgie Porgie. Oh, this is good. It's a good one. Guido Fawkes, I think this is from.
Of late, intimidation, aggressive tactics. What would you say to try and cool the temperature before the vote on Thursday?
Well, everyone has to calm down. We all have to live with each other after Thursday, so that goes for everybody. But contrary to the narrative...
And don't forget how well George did in the I think he came third. Labour won that battle in Spain, but George got massive initial votes. And with George now trying to get 632 candidates for all of the seats in the UK, it really means that the Workers' Party vote can come out.
That has been...
And especially if Jeremy Corbyn's leading it, it's going to have a total change in the landscape.
Spun, we are actually the victims of that dirty trick approach to politics.
What George can't do is not try and fill every seat. And every seat, people have to raise the £500 for standing. But I believe, I'll show you in a minute, but I believe that there's been thousands and thousands of new members joining the Workers' Party and transforming it. I believe, as I said, the trade unions are thinking about joining, as well as Jeremy Corbyn, Ken Livingstone's thinking about joining, and some big people, big MPs who have been expelled are all thinking about joining the National Socialist Workers' Party of Great Britain. And this is really going to advance the left no end. There's going to be a total revolution in politics, a peaceful revolution this time, unlike what the left usually do.
Police Council, a Labour council, has in the last 48 hours removed at least 2,000 of our posters from lampposts.
We've seen a lot of your posters. There's no doubt that you're making a real impression here. But why have you come to stand in this seat? You have nothing to do with this particular seat.
Would you ask that of any of the other candidates?
Have done. Yes,
why have they come to stand in this seat? Because there's an election. And the election...
That's a very stupid thing to say from this woman. Very silly. There's people from all over the world that are standing in our elections.
Come man, why wouldn't somebody vote for Kim Leadbeater, who...
Because she's rubbish.
Is born and bred here and knows...
I know, it's just... you've got to understand that the media protect the corporatist globalists. They're basically shills for the Lib Lab Con Party, and they protect it. George has got every right to stand as he is, to stand in every constituency, which I believe that they're starting to get candidates do stand in each of these. They're raising the £500, and it's going to, the Workers' Party will stand in every constituency in the UK.
Is the constituency very well?
Is there any need for me in this interview, or are you just going to give a party political broadcast? I'm deeply connected to this area, as you're going to see on Thursday. As to the local aspect, well, Marcelo Bielsa from nearby Argentina has got Leeds United flying in the Premier Division. It's not where you're from that counts, it's what you can do.
So
I hope you never have to hire a lawyer, but I'm sure that if you do, you'll choose the best one, not the one that lives across the road.
But some of your campaign is surely about getting rid of Keir Starmer as the leader of the Labour Party.
Sure.
You've spoken about that.
Sure.
And you've talked about yourself being a revolutionary in the past. This kind of revolution, though, is a negative one, surely. What are your positive goals, other than trying to bring down the Labour leader?
I ask again, is there any point in me being in this interview? This is a party political broadcast. The people here have been left behind, neglected, and taken for granted. And they're going to show what they feel about that on Thursday. I think I'll be the beneficiary of that, but whatever happens, Labour will lose this election, and they will lose it.
Well, they were very close to losing it. George got a huge amount of votes, and I think the new Workers' Party under Jeremy Corbyn will continue to get huge amounts of votes.
Not because you say I'm a revolutionary,
No,
not
you
because
said
I
you were
arrived
revolutionary.
with a fanfare on a bus, not for any of the other negatives you've spun in just 2 or 3 minutes in this interview, but because
Arriving
Labour...
on a bus and having a fanfare isn't a negative thing.
100 yards from here is a listed building that used to be the police station. Labour closed it down and sold it to a property developer for the price of a chip shop. That's the kind of local issue that has got people very angry indeed at Labour. And you're going to see, look, all of your questions...
Let's talk about the Conservatives then, because they could have kept that police station open. They've been in power since 2010.
No, it was Labour that closed it.
If you split the Labour vote...
There is no Labour vote. There are only voters.
Okay, if you drive a wedge through the majority that Labour currently hold, surely you will be handing this election to the Conservatives. Is that what you want?
Well, Labour did win it, just in hindsight.
Is this Labour TV or is it the BBC?
Ah, that's right. The BBC are Labour TV, Georgie Porgie.
Is this Labour TV?
Are you happy to see the Conservatives gain power here?
All right, okay. Anti-Conservative.
No such thing as a Labour vote. There are only voters, individual human beings who have to be persuaded to vote for you. Now, your concern for the fate of the Labour Party in this constituency is touching, probably in breach of the BBC's charter.
I'm asking.
Yes, that's right, George. That is in breach.
One of the reasons why people are switching
power.
off
Are you happy
the
to have the
News.
I've switched it off. I've switched them off as well, George. Well said.
Conservatives in power?
That's right, George.
I'm fighting to win this election. If you vote for me, you'll get me.
Oh, that's great. That'd be great.
I have no obligation to any other party.
Don't forget, Georgie Porgie won Bradford, so he can win seats for the Respect Party that's now defunct. Now, if George is going to be treated as a serious political entity in the future, he has to stand candidates in every constituency that he potentially could throughout the UK, or it's just just a pressure group of a party. Are you going to be serious? Is the Workers' Party a serious party, or is it just a kid-on party? You have to get your base to stand in every constituency, Georgie Porgie.
In this election.
But how much of an obligation do you feel that you have to back the inspect?
You quite simply would never ask these questions.
No, that's right, George. She certainly wouldn't.
Of anyone else. You wouldn't ask the Liberal Democrat.
Yeah. This is the deep state.
If he was happy to let in the Tories, why are you asking me?
Because you're the person who's likely to take more of the vote than the Liberal Democrats are in this election, according to the polls.
I'm not sure how you know that, but it's encouraging of you to say so. I'm fighting on my record, my programme, for votes for me. And you probably wouldn't be here if you didn't already know that I was doing so quite successfully.
We're here because we're talking to a lot of voters and
you don't talk to any of the smaller parties, don't kid on.
a lot of candidates.
Rubbish.
You've said it's about you. It should be about the people of Batley and Spen. How long do you... Just then you said it's about me. It's about votes for me.
My record, my programme, and what I'm offering the people in this by-election. You're no Jeremy Paxman. I don't know if that's what you're trying to pretend that you are.
At all.
And the BBC News Channel sure ain't no singing and dancing success.
Well,
I gave you my
true,
time
Mr. Galloway.
to speak about the issues in this election. All you have done from the first second is attack me on behalf of the Labour Party.
No, not
That's right.
Which is a very odd use of all these
and taxpayers' money.
2, 3, 4, 5 BBC staff. It's an odd use of the taxpayers' money.
It's a licence fee payer, not a
Yeah, well, it's a poll tax.
taxpayer.
What's the difference between a licence fee and a taxpayer?
It's a levy, not a tax.
Do you want to have a debate about that?
What I'd like
because
you to
people are
do-
sick paying the BBC for party political
I would
propaganda
like to
That's right, George, you tell them.
on behalf of the establishment.
I would like
That's
to
right.
ask you then, how long-term a commitment are you prepared to make in Batley and Spen?
Exactly the same as everyone else. This constituency ceases to exist at the next general election. Perhaps you didn't know that. This is the last election there will ever be in the Batley and Spen constituency. That's my commitment.
But the people will still have a vote for
Sure
someone.
they will. They'll be split into different constituencies.
And the Workers' Party will hopefully be standing in every one of them.
Thanks to Tory gerrymandering. But I'll be, if elected, the last ever Member of Parliament for Batley and Spen. And I hope to be. I think it would be a real signature sign-off for this constituency if they told everyone they were not going to be taken for granted anymore.
That's right, George, you tell them. So,
Trail of late.
Get off.
Impression here, but why have you come to stand in this seat? You have nothing to do with this.
No, we couldn't get Owen to come on the show,
that's not
but we
it.
did get one of his colleagues, Jenny Chapman, the member.
no, that's not it. That's not what I'm looking for. That's not it. Outrage. Taken hostage. Oh, Diane. Oh. Here we go.
A lot of people have asked me about our Workers' Party's reaction to, response to the news. Although it wasn't really news, was it leaked or was it invented? Who knows? That Jeremy Corbyn, having given up the ghost on ever being allowed back in...
It was on the Guerilla TV channel. We broke it first that Jeremy might be joining George in the Workers' Party. Up to 50 MPs might be switching. Former and people that might be getting kicked out are switching to the Workers' Party. And that George is going to stand in every constituency throughout the UK with 632 potential candidates. I believe they're now actually applying for everybody to stand as an MP, even with his paper candidates, in every constituency.
To the parliamentary Labour.
Ken Livingstone might be coming back into politics, standing again for them. The unions are potentially going to be backing them. This is massive. The momentum is going to switch from Labour to George Galloway's party. And I believe that a large section of the youth are now giving up the Labour Party to stand for George Galloway's Workers' Party.
Labour Party, and thus, of course, facing an official Labour candidate at the next general election if he decides to run again for re-election, has tired of waiting and has decided that he's going to form and lead, presumably, a new political party.
Now, that's a waste of time. You might as well run and lead the Workers' Party. If you're going to set up another political party, it's just a complete waste of time. George has already got an entity there that's already stood in seats and Jeremy Corbyn setting up an alternative. It's like the workers, and George and Jeremy would be stronger together rather than petty squabbling. It's like the People's Front of Judea and the Judean People's Front. What are you guys saying anyway? Hello, what's happening? Yeah, I saw your stream yesterday. Yeah, I know it was a bit bad, but at least we've now sorted it out. Hopefully you can hear it. George is mad. George Galloway should join the patriotic alternative. Yeah, there's very little between, as far as I can see, the BNP, the patriotic alternative, and the Workers' Party. I mean, really, if George Workers' Party merged with patriotic alternative, then we could talk. Yeah, Mark Collette and Nick Griffin, along with George Galloway, should start a new party. Everyone knows that. That's right. There's so little between it all. So little. See, they keep saying far right, but they all of these could be actually on the left. Of course, everyone knows. Of course, let me know how you see things. Yeah, I totally agree. I would love to speak to Mark Collette. See, I would speak to anybody. I doesn't care. I don't care if it's the left or the right. I will speak to anyone, because at the point I get a first-hand account of where they are, so we know exactly where they are. I don't just ascribe things to put people down in politics. I actually ask them to position themselves. But as far as I can see, Twigman, that you're completely correct. Yeah, there's nothing that I've seen that would separate that above position, and if the BNP were a Marxist organisation or a National Socialist or Fascist organisation, now I don't know if that's a fact. I don't know if that is a fact. Mark Collette was a neo-Nazi, or it still stems back to Marxism. And George has simped for every totalitarian regime in the world as well. Don't forget, BNP, PA, Labour and Workers' Party. Yes, it's not far off. Guerilla TV. George is a silly character. Workers come. Yeah, well, I don't think you're wrong. Carry on, George.
Based on the Peace and Justice non-government organisation, but not a political party, that he founded a couple of years ago.
So let me... I'd not heard of this either, and George is right in this.
That he founded a couple of years ago. I've got to say in parenthesis, I've not been massively impressed by the work of the Peace and Justice Foundation, maybe.
But it's just like the People's Front of Judea and the Judean People's Front. It's a complete waste of time setting up another alternative to the Workers' Party. If George Galloway, if Jeremy Corbyn is going to advance, he needs to bring the people who he was close to back together and join in this new Workers' Party. This is a home for the dissidents in the Labour Party. There's no point in them all going away and I'm going to set up mine. I don't quite like George or Jeremy Corbyn or whoever. It's pointless setting up these. They would be better coming together in this new political entity. They've already worked together. They all think the same anyway. So Jeremy Corbyn backing this new Workers' Party would be absolutely ideal.
It's just gone over my head or behind my back, but I haven't seen or felt any great output from that, which is not a great sign for transforming it into a political party. But let's assume, as a hypothesis, that Mr. Corbyn does this. What would my reaction to it be? What would the Workers' Party's reaction to it be?
But it just seems like you're not in that significant difference ideologically that you shouldn't be working together. You and Jeremy Corbyn should be working together. It's as simple as that. So let's hear, would they actually work together?
Hello and welcome along to what will be the first in an ongoing series of videos I'll be doing for the Workers' Party of Britain on a variety of different subjects, hopefully of interest to all of you out there. Going to be doing these a couple of times a month to start off with. And for the first one, I thought we'd start off by taking a look at the subject which might have brought many of us, at least in part, into joining the Workers' Party in the very first place, which is the defeat and the collapse of Corbyn and the Labour Party that he led, and its subsequent replacement by the Labour Party of Keir Starmer. But more specifically, I want to talk to you about the way in which the Corbyn project failed and why it failed specifically, and what that can tell us about the state of working class politics in Britain today. Now, I was a member of the Labour Party between 2015 or late 2015 and late 2019. Formally left just before the disaster of the general election. And like perhaps many of you watching this, I was infused to a degree by the victory of Jeremy Corbyn in the Labour Party leadership election of 2015. I didn't think that his victory would lead to some kind of socialist paradise, but I did think that it had the potential to open up some opportunities for basic working class political demands that hadn't been on the political agenda of the mainstream for quite a long number of years. And so I was happy to throw myself into that, as I suspect many of you watching this were. So why did we go from, well, the high point being the near victory in 2017 to the ultimately disastrous electoral result in late 2019? And the answer to that lies in, again, the class politics of the situation. You see, in 2015, when Corbyn won for the first time, it was unfortunately not on the back of a huge upsurge in working class industrial struggle. And to draw a comparison here, I'm going to go back to the high point of the Labour Party, the high point of reforms won by the British working class, which is the period 1945 to 1951, which is the two Labour governments that existed under Clement Attlee of that period, which are almost universally acknowledged by everybody within British politics, who analyse British politics, to be the most reforming government the country had ever had, or perhaps ever did have, at least the one that delivered the most reforms that immediately benefited the working class. So to compare why Corbyn failed ultimately to why there was a degree of success for that kind of politics in the past, you have to look at the actual position of the working class movement in Britain. And the position of the working class movement in 1945 in a country which had been severely damaged by 6 years of warfare was actually, though, much stronger in relative terms than it was in 2015. We had a much more powerful and much more extensive trade union movement at that time. The country was, of course, very different in terms of the fact that there was a much greater industrial base. There was a much greater number of working class people engaged in productive activity. By that I mean the kind of work that directly led to industrial commodities being produced. And of course you had more beyond the trade union movement and a more large-scale and confident working class movement. Back in 1945, of course, you had the existence of the Soviet Union, which did give a living example of a socialist revolution, a workers' revolution that existed in the world that could provide inspiration for workers all over the world, and indeed did for many working class people in Britain. And of course you have the rulers of the country, the capitalist class in Britain, being relatively weakened in 1945, having gone through 6 years of war, having spent an awful lot of money. The government was faced with severe economic consequences of that war and had to be ultimately bailed out by the American ruling class, but also by various other moves to shore up certainly the banking system and shore up British capitalism as a whole. Now, in that situation, when faced with a powerful working class movement, millions of working class men having been through the armed forces, millions of working class women having been through the workforce in the factories in World War II, and a real determination amongst those working class people not to have done to them what had been done to their parents' generation after World War I, which is where notoriously David Lloyd George, the Prime Minister after World War I, promised a land fit for heroes and delivered none of it. So there was a real determination there amongst working class people, and indeed quite a large, sizable chunk of the middle class as well, that they weren't going to accept the same lie all over again. And so that has an impact upon the ruling class in Britain. It will, all those circumstances of a powerful and determined working class, an well-organised working class in much more extensive trade unions than we had in the period 2015 to 2019, and the existence of actually a real-life example of a socialist state in action, all of that combined to create a great deal of pressure on the British ruling class, which was, again, unfortunately absent in 2015. And of course, there's not only the circumstances changed, but the working class went through many defeats after the period of reforms definitively came to an end in the middle 1960s. And what that meant was, by the time we reached 2015, what we were faced with was a working class movement that, while still there are over 6 million people in the trade unions, still over 1 million of them in the private sector, though the bulk of the trade union movement now exists in the public sector. And for a variety of reasons, public sector trade unionism is not as powerful. Unfortunately, it's not as effective as a private sector worker on a production line withdrawing his or her labour, and so that has an impact upon the amount of industrial action that can be taken, upon the effectiveness of that industrial action that can be taken. And in 2015 we weren't in a strike wave, we weren't in a period where the working class movement was actually making gains and going forward. We were still in a period of long and bitter defeats. And so what happens in 2015 with the victory of Jeremy Corbyn is that his movement isn't built on a powerful and organised working class. What it's built on, even though many working class people did join up, the real organisers of that movement were a group of largely middle class radicals based around a few urban centres in London, Manchester and a couple of other places. Now, what difference does that make, is the legitimate question to ask there. Well, without a powerful working class movement behind it, a party like the Labour Party is unfortunately never going to actually deliver on the kind of reforms that would benefit the working class in an extensive way. One of the things that defines the working class anywhere in the world is the working class's ability to actually directly impact upon the profits of the ruling class by taking industrial action of various different kinds, and that is a huge... And
this is one of the reasons that there's a disconnect now, because obviously Sir Keir Starmer was sacking people for going and standing beside the workers who are legitimately protesting, especially public sector workers, but really it's any worker who is now having to suffer the degradation in their money through inflation. So the inflation is now eroding the actual value of the money by up to 10%. And what they have to do, the workers have to do, is then fight for pay rises that would cover the inflation rate, which again is inflationary in itself. So because the Chancellor, Rishi Bignose, pumped all this money into and caused inflation in the first place, pumped all this money into the economy and caused inflation, now everybody's pay packet is lighter because of the inflation. So the value of your money is decreased because Rishi Sunak.
The important factor in the formation of working class politics.
Which again is leading to industrial action, as we've seen with the train drivers who have been striking last week.
Because if you are a class who, via the withdrawal of your labour, can directly impact upon the profit margins of the rich and powerful, well, they are obliged to take you seriously. That's why there's so many laws against organising a strike in this country. That's why there's so extensive a set of anti-union laws, which, of course, Tony Blair was so proud and boasted of repeatedly over and over again when he was...
So, obviously, Tony Blair, a socialist, a social democrat, although I believe his politics were more extreme when he was at university. But Tony Blair's just a globalist shill as well. And so it's no surprise that he was against the working class. He went to Fettes in Scotland, which is like the Scottish equivalent of Eton, and looks a bit like Fettes College looks a bit like Hogwarts, and and I don't know if that's where she got it from, but Hogwarts in what do you call it, Harry Potter.
Prime Minister.
And then he went to Oxford. So not exactly another champion of the working class. Same with Sir Keir Starmer, the alleged Trotsky.
And without that, though, without a strong working class movement, but with a middle class organised movement, which is what Jeremy Corbyn had, that potential impact that the working class has, being absent, means you get a much weaker form of politics, and that's ultimately what we got with the Corbyn years. And one of the features of a politics based on middle class radicals is because the middle class, by the nature of its existence, the clue is in the name, it's sandwiched between the big capitalists on the one hand and the mass of the working class on the other.
See, they keep saying capitalists, but I would suggest that they're corporatists rather than capitalists. I think we require an actual capitalist party, which I think this is where the left get it wrong, and not differentiating between capitalism and corporatism, which is, I think, why the left because the left don't really understand economics, and this is why they keep getting it wide of the mark.
A class in society that's balanced between those two, or squashed between those two, it tends to be under the influence of one then the other. It doesn't have an independent position because it doesn't have the same power that the capitalists have, which is the power of capital, the power to exploit labour, the power to move and invest capital where they want.
Or the government to erode your wealth through inflation, with the Bank of England not doing what they were meant to do, independent Bank of England, and control inflation.
The power to move governments if they wish to. And the working class, who has the power of their labour, the power of their collective organisation, the power to withdraw that labour and force a confrontation with the ruling class. The middle class doesn't have those things. Now this is not to say that middle class people can't join working class struggles. Many have in the past. There have been many good socialists who came out of the middle class in Britain to join the working class in a struggle for the working class's interests, and that's always to be welcomed. But the difference is when a struggle is organised and led by workers, and when a struggle is organised and led by the middle class.
So Sarwar obviously went to one of the top private schools in Scotland, Hutchie Grammar, as well, and just like Sir Keir Starmer, Sarwar is a posh rich boy.
Only taking the middle class as the basis of its organisation, then that leads to a much...
And I would say that Sarwar is the most right-wing political leader in Scotland for quite a long time, including some of the Tories as well.
Much more uneven and much more confused struggle, which is ultimately what we got with the Corbyn years, unfortunately. We see this exemplified through things like the whole Brexit process. Many of you will remember the debates that took place around Brexit. Some of you may have voted for it, some of you might not. But what happened in the Labour Party was a very damaging split emerged between those who
the globalist middle class from London,
who were middle class radicals who said they wanted socialism, but
actually are globalists. This is why I'm trying to say that the socialists are controlled by the globalists. The globalists and the socialists, although the socialists preach left wing and even far left ideology, including postmodernist Marxism, the globalists are corporatist globalists, and they're not necessarily that bothered. They'll utilise any globalist organisation to further the globalist agenda.
But were virulently opposed to Brexit because they saw within the European Union some kind of cultural signifier that they...
Some form of undemocratic process where they could push through their globalist agenda.
Strongly identified with. Some of them even argued that it had the potential within it to be transformed into socialism.
Oh, there you go. There you go. So the undemocratic EU had the ability to be transformed into a socialist entity. And wee Nippy standing there with a red flag with the EU's stars in front of it. And wee Nippy's not changed her student day politics to this day. That's probably why she will go down as the worst First Minister in history. But she could fit in right here into the Labour Party as well. She's the Labour Party with another bad haircut, no children, absolutely useless.
I and many of you will disagree with that. But ultimately what it was about was the fact that many of these people in the...
were just globalist shows.
Around Jeremy Corbyn, and certainly...
Were just globalist shows.
Within his inner circle and within powerful positions within the Labour Party.
Were just globalist shows.
Not prepared to accept a democratic vote.
That's right, because they're not interested in democracy. They're globalist fascists, that's right.
A democratic vote to leave the European Union.
Yeah, that's right, because they are fascists.
Was overwhelmingly a vote powered by the votes of the British working class.
That's right, because they saw that the globalist shows were not democratic, and they weren't, and the EU was not in the interest of not just working people in the UK, but throughout Europe. We only have to look at the Netherlands to see the fantastic farmers over there, or what's happening in Italy, what's happened in Poland, what's happened in Hungary, what's happened in Sweden. What a disaster that's turned out to be. All through the globalist fascists.
Back in 2016. And because they were unable to accept this, because their politics led them towards a form of really elitism, they didn't want a politics which was of and for the working class. They wanted a politics that was run by them, and they would then gift things to the working class if they got into power, which is not what working class politics is about. That's a form of, I would argue, middle class charity worker politics, basically, and that is not the kind of politics that is going to lead you towards any kind of socialist outcomes. But their inability to accept that democratic vote paralysed the Labour Party. It was preyed upon expertly by the Tories and their media strategists in the run-up to 2019. They managed to turn themselves into the champions and protectors of a democratic vote, falsely in many cases, and portray the Labour Party as this anti-democratic, elitist, snobbish party that wanted to take away people's right to see their democratic vote implemented. And the problem with this came from the fact that the Corbyn movement was one that was not led by workers, it was led by middle-class radicals.
The globalist shows.
And as long as that remained the case, it was always going to be extremely difficult to make any kind of breakthrough, because the mentality of these people always is that they know best and they will lead the workers, and if the workers don't like it, then the workers must be wrong. And all of that was on display before 2019. And it's a complete contrast if you look back to the higher period of Labour Party politics or the higher period of working class politics, when you had mass working class participation in trade unions at a much higher level, when you had not just the Labour Party in Parliament, but in 1945 you had even two...
What you guys say?
MPs from the old Communist Party of Great Britain get in and serve at least 5 years in the Parliament then. And what's happened is, since... Am
I still going here? Am I still live streaming? Yep, looks like it. Looks like it.
Certainly since the turning point in 84 to 85 with the miners' strike, you've seen the ruling class in this country really look to push workers completely out of the political process. And why do they do this? The rather obvious answer
is so they can get posh upper class, middle class entities like Sir Keir Starmer, multimillionaire, and Anasawa, multimillionaire, to lead the workers. Come on!
Is that the ruling class in this country, and indeed any country, weren't too happy to give workers the vote in the first place, and have been looking to minimise the damage to them and their class ever since. But let's unpack it in a bit more detail. You see, you get this long period throughout the 19th century, which people like Karl Marx observed and was participating in, when you get a lot of British working class people engaging in the struggle to win the vote, and then the vote is won for working class men slowly over many, many years through forcing concessions from various governments throughout the 19th century, until finally they're forced to give women the vote, and then finally working class men and women all have the vote by the end of the 1920s. And that was when the final property qualification was removed for women. So what that means is that in actual fact the whole of the working class in Britain hasn't even had the vote for even 100 years. So that's something which is worth bearing in mind. It took over a century of struggle to win the vote, and the working class in Britain has only had it since the in total since the late 1920s. And ever since that concession was won, the ruling class have been looking for ways to take political decisions away from democratically elected bodies, have them put into unaccountable bureaucracies, have them
like the EU,
put into areas where even the smallest amount of scrutiny that can be directed against them by working class MPs or MPs for a workers' party, where that scrutiny can't be present. Because one of the things that animates the politics of the capitalist class is its need for rapid decision making when that class has a need for something. And what they don't want is a bunch of workers sticking their noses into what they regard as their business. And so you see, as soon as workers have the vote, things start to move towards being run more bureaucratically. And I'll give you a concrete example of that. Used to be in this country that the police forces were much more under the control of elected local officials. And strangely enough, as soon as the working class were enfranchised into the 1920s, suddenly the old Liberal Party and the Tories started saying, well, we need a more efficient system than these elected representatives being responsible for scrutinising the police force, because we need efficient decision making. We can't have the police officers subject to the whims of politics and stuff like that. But what they really meant was, suddenly this system was giving workers the right to scrutinise what went on in the policing of their areas. And so that needed to be withdrawn, and that democratic input over policing needed to be minimised and taken away. And you can look at this on in a variety of areas of policy. That's just one example, and that was happened as early as the 1920s. And you look at the way that Parliament has gone in recent years, and you can see all the same forces in play. For a while, due to the strength of the working class movement and the fear that it imposed upon the ruling class in this country, they were obliged to make democratic concessions. But when their profits started getting endangered in the middle of the 1960s onwards, they unleashed, of course, a vicious class war upon the British working class to try and take back those concessions, to try and make workers pay for the crisis by working longer hours, by contributing more to their pensions whilst the employers contributed less, by ultimately closing down whole industries and asset stripping whole areas and sending production to other places or automating it entirely. This is what happened in the long and vicious class struggle that took place between the middle 1960s and the middle 1980s. And when the working class ultimately lost that battle, of course the class war never ends, the ruling class took that as an opportunity to definitively push working class politics completely out of their system entirely. Of course, the vote was still retained, but they found ways to minimise this. They found ways to make sure that more decisions were taken behind closed doors. The British Parliament, in the form of the House of Commons, became more irrelevant. And this is what they always try and do. And this isn't just in Britain, this is an international picture. Everywhere where the working class was politically defeated in the 80s and the 90s, the ruling class of that country looks to capitalise upon that defeat by making sure that concessions to the working class, both in the economic and the political sphere, are withdrawn, reorganised, and so there can be less influence of the working class over what they regard as their essential business. But because before workers had the vote, they were able to use parliaments purely for the business of their class. And when workers dared to intrude on that, well, then they had to reorganise. And this is part of the reason why even the very mild reforms proposed by Jeremy Corbyn when he was Labour Party leader drove these people into a frenzy, because they thought they'd won the whole game. And suddenly they were confronted with albeit incoherent, albeit something that was run largely by radicals from the middle class. They were faced with some demands for reform, and they decided that this was just too much for them, and that they couldn't have even the tiniest hint of any reform against them, no matter how mild, no matter how inadequate that reform might have been, was not to be accepted. It needed to be stamped out completely. And they very efficiently did that, with the assistance ultimately, though, unfortunately, of the Corbyn people themselves, who walked straight into a trap over Brexit. But this is what we're faced with. We're faced with the rulers of the country don't want to concede anything economically or politically to the working class. And so when you've got a party like the Labour Party, which has been in Parliament for so long and has been so thoroughly integrated into the institutions of the British ruling class, you find that the people who dwell within it, most specifically the MPs, a lot of its councillors, they take on the mentality of the rulers. And you see this completely with people like the Shadow Chancellor. You might have heard of her, Rachel Reeves. I wouldn't blame you if you hadn't. She's a fairly anonymous figure. They're allegedly a Labour Party person, saying it's good that all those people left the Labour Party after Jeremy Corbyn resigned. It's good because they didn't share our values, is what she said. So they've lost almost, well, they're rather vague on the figures, but the Labour Party in its high point had almost 600,000 people in it. Now, according to most estimates, it's below 200,000. Because they've lost, 350, 400,000 people, wow. And they don't care. They think it's good.
And a lot of them have gone to the Workers' Party. The Workers' Party membership has rocketed because all these people have jumped ship, including Jeremy Corbyn's about to come over, and a lot of the Labour MPs.
Now, you might say, well, that's just an excuse. But if you look into these people's statements, you can see the reality, which is that they do not regard...
So the Labour Party's just run by a bunch of globalist shells?
Any participation in the political process by anyone other than themselves as legitimate. And they don't regard any demand being made on them as legitimate, because these people have the mentality that they are there to run the system on behalf of the British capitalist class, and nobody else can intrude. If you're a working class person who's prepared to sell out on every single principle, then maybe they'll accept you. But they certainly can't have any demands for reform. They certainly can't have any demands that the system even be moderately made less severe upon the British working class, because these people act on behalf of the people who run and own and rule the system.
That's why there's no point in jumping ship from the Labour Party, from the Conservatives to the Labour Party, because it's just going to be the same. You're not going to have a change in policy. This is why there's a big going to be a big push for socialism under the Workers' Party. Same with the UK Reform Party. Both of these will take away votes, and Richard Tice already advocated that he's going to have 632 candidates for every constituency in the UK. And I believe the Workers' Party are going to do the same and have candidates in every constituency in the UK.
And that's the mentality that governs the Labour Party today. And it's the mentality that Keir Starmer is now going around saying, if you don't accept this method of ruling of mine, if you don't accept this glorious new party that I have carved in my own image.
The globalist shilling, nondescript, technocratic elite.
Then you are out. If you disagree with me, you are out. And I think we should all welcome Keir Starmer's remarkable honesty there when he says to people, if you don't agree with my line on NATO, then you're out. If you don't agree with my line on Israel, then you're out. And I for one...
don't forget he's married to Jews, and that's causing problems. Married to a Jewess, which is causing problems with the Muslim vote. The Muslims are not too happy that Keir Starmer's position on Israel, and also obviously there's a lot of anti-Semitism with in Islam, and also other parts of political ideology, whether it be National Socialism or Marxism, which National Socialism came from.
Welcome his candour, because it's clear, and they're being very honest about it now. The Labour Party is no place for working class people. It's no place.
That's why everybody's left, and they're all joining the Workers' Party.
For anybody who's any kind of principled socialist. It's no place for anybody who apparently doesn't want to see World War III started. Mm-hmm. So good. I'm glad they've been this honest about their intentions.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they've put Tony Blair and Peter Mandelson front and centre again.
Yeah.
It makes it
they're horrible globalist shows as well.
Absolutely clear who these people are and what they stand for.
Globalist shows. Just like the Conservatives, you're just jumping between one globalist entity to another globalist entity. That's not really democracy. And we've got a newscast that supports the globalist shilling for these entities. That's why I think the Workers' Party, standing in every constituency in UK Reform, will cast shadows on both the Labour Party and the Conservatives to find out what they actually are.
But to finish off, just to reiterate the point, the problem with the Corbyn movement was that it was a reflection of its times, of a relatively weak position for the working class, where there was no big industrial struggle to power working class politics, where the politics of the Labour Party was dominated by the actions of some middle class radicals who didn't have the class power or position to actually do anything truly radical, but who managed to push push the buttons of the ruling class just by hinting at reforms, because the system has been so thoroughly purged of any working class influence that the ruling class in Britain, the capitalist class, cannot tolerate even the hint that it might change, even in the tiniest pro-worker direction. So that's why many of us left the Labour Party. It's why many of you might have joined the Workers' Party of Britain.
Thousands and thousands of people have joined it. It's unbelievable, the huge membership increase. They're going to be able to definitely get the 632 candidates to stand in every constituency. I think some people are self-funding the £500, and I believe that the election process is starting now in preparation for every constituency from the Workers' Party to be filled, and which is only going to be boosted by Jeremy Corbyn's move from the Labour Party. Now he's been kicked out to the Workers' Party. Carry on.
Britain, certainly. I think we've made the right decision. It's clear that not only does the Labour Party does not want us, but they are viscerally hostile to us. And, well, let's welcome their hatred. It's clearly time, if they don't want anything to do with us, that we get on with building something else. Let Keir Starmer and his merry men sink the boat and cut out the wood from under their feet. It's no business of ours anymore. It's clear that we have to build our own party. We have to build a party of, by and for the working class. And I think that that's a very positive step that many of us have made in actually joining the Workers' Party to start that process off. But I hope you've enjoyed this first video today. I hope you've got something out of it.
Fantastic, absolutely super, super duper.
Just 1 minute a day, the easiest way to regrow hair from home. There's no need to worry about receding hair.
Now, a lot of your constituents, a lot of Londoners will be asking you the question, what's going to happen when it comes to the general election and your own position? Will you be standing for Labour
or the Workers' Party?
Or will you stand as an independent?
I think we're in danger of hypothetical questions here.
Yeah, we know you're going to stand for the Workers' Party and you and George are going to bury the hatchet.
What I hope is that the Parliamentary Labour Party will recognise that they are in an untenable position.
They haven't done that and you've been kicked out. You're persona non grata.
Yes, my membership was very briefly suspended of the
you're out.
Party in after the publication of the HRC report, and then I was reinstated unanimously by a panel of the NEC, and then subsequently my PLP membership was suspended. I think it's wrong, it's unfair, and I should be reinstated, and indeed an awful lot of people in Islington think exactly the same. But
they do, and you probably win for the Workers' Party Islington, but Labour will stand a candidate against you. So it's now time to jump ship, Jeremy. It's now time to be the first Workers' Party MP in the House of Commons.
So that is hypothetical, I think.
Well, it's not hypothetical, it's the right political decision. You and George burying the hatchet and you join the Workers' Party.
The short period after the local elections, which are on May the 5th, would be a good opportunity to right what I believe to be a wrong.
Well, they're not going to do that, so I would jump just now. Get the other 50 MPs who are loyal to you and would join the Workers' Party. Momentum's going to join the Workers' Party. Trade unions are going to join the Workers' Party. The youth are going to join the Workers' Party. And we're just going to see how many people have left Labour to join the Workers' Party. It's huge.
So your hope is that you will be reinstated, you will be able to stand as a Labour candidate at the next general election. In the event that you aren't readmitted to the party, I'm sorry,
which you're not going to be, which is why you should join. There's no point producing another party when you could be the leader of this Workers' Party.
We're getting into the area of hypotheticals. In the event that you're not, would you be prepared to stand as an independent?
Let's deal with that bridge when we...
Would you be prepared to join the Workers' Party, bury the hatchet and stand for the Workers' Party leader? And I'm sure that would... I'm sure right now that would be the best option for you politically.
Get to it.
Why won't you just say sorry, though, to facilitate that, to make that more smooth?
I've explained many times that my total abhorrence of anti-Semitism in any form. I made that very clear on behalf of the Labour Party in a statement in 2018, and that there were people who were hurt. There were people who were wrongly treated. That's why I inherited a non-system, and with great difficulty I introduced a system of dealing with complaints against people, some of which were correct. People had committed acts of anti-Semitism and were quite rightly suspended and a small number expelled. Others were malicious complaints against people that had done nothing wrong and were subsequently reinstated, and there was a process set up by me to do that. The HRC did an investigation, and on the day concerned, I accepted the HRC report and said that it should be implemented and I would support the implementation of it. And we should move on from that point.
Keir Starmer's made it pretty clear, though, that without an apology, then there won't be a way back for you. So how do you get around that?
Well, I simply say that
I'm going to join the Working Party, Workers' Party.
Many years ago, and so very small number of PDMs, and if you look through anti-Semitism.
So how do you get around that?
Well, I simply say that I oppose anti-Semitism in absolutely any form.
But you joined the Workers' Party?
I have all my life. And if you look through the order paper, you look through EDMs and so on, sometimes I was one of a very small number of people. For example, supporting Yemeni Jews trying to get to a place of safety in Canada. many years ago, and so on. And so any hurt to any Jewish person is of course wrong. I hope I've never caused any hurt to any Jewish person. I would never want to, and obviously I don't intend to, and I'd be sorry if I had.
When was the last time you spoke to Keir Starmer?
About 2 years ago.
Right. And what would you say to him if you were to have a conversation today?
I would say, I think here we need to move on. And I think we just need to move on, and I should be reinstated into the PLP, because there has been no...
But it's not going to happen, Jeremy, so you need to deal with political realities as it is on the ground. And the political reality is that you're not getting back in the PLC. So we can forget about that. It's not relevant, it's not going to happen. You're going to have to pick. So are you going to stand as an independent, which will be a waste of time? You'd be better standing for the Workers' Party. Are you going to stand with this new political entity, which seems another waste of time? So you're going to have the Workers' Party versus your party, and rather than burying the hatchet, are you that arrogant that you're going to not join the Workers' Party for some hard feelings between you and George? It doesn't make any sense. You should now jump ship. You've got 2 years to move to the Workers' Party. You're not going to get back in the Labour Party, and you could now set up the Workers' Party. You and the other MPs could jump ship and now be part of the Workers' Party, a collective in the Parliament, which would be massive for you and would probably give you an inroad to get back into Parliament in the next election. And you've got a political entity that you're not going to have to set up another political entity with no members. Doesn't make any sense. That's why you're going to join the Workers' Party.
Process taken against me by the PLP. All I've had is a letter saying I'm not a member of the PLP.
It could be massive if Jeremy does join. I mean, you still get a huge support in the country. If Jeremy and George Galloway get together, it could be a massive party.
This is not a good look for the Labour Party.
No.
It doesn't even have a process.
That's right.
As far as the party.
They're not interested in the process. They're just interested in authoritarianism.
The Labour Party is concerned.
That's right. That's right. They don't care.
Now, a lot of your constituents, a lot of Londoners will be...
Oh, come on, where is that? Watch later. Georgie, Porgie. Come on, Georgie. Have you got anything else you want to show me, George? Fantastic. I've had a great time with you, George. There's Diane, Fat Diane. Fat Diane and Dave could be joining Georgie Porgie. No, he doesn't like Fat Diane. He thinks Fat Diane's dodgy.
There's an extraordinary amount of lack of questioning going on the British left, on the international left for that matter, vividly illustrated by Diane Abbott's tweet this evening, in which she concedes that the United States have been struggling to bring democracy to something she calls the global south over these last years until the Donald Trump interregnum. And the point she's making is that Trump has to be out as quickly as possible so that the United States can get back to bringing democracy to the global south. Leaving aside the very last century, 1980s nomenclature, the very last thing that the United States has been seeking to bring anywhere, never mind the global south, is democracy. To imagine that is to imagine they invaded and occupied Iraq for democracy, Afghanistan for democracy, Libya for democracy, Syria for democracy. The belief that the United States' role in the Ukraine was about bringing democracy, the United States' role in Africa and in Asia, to which continents they brought only disaster over this last period. To imagine that that was about bringing democracy would be idiocy coming from a right-wing don at Oxford University.
for it to come from the pen, so to speak, of one of the leading figures of Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet beggars belief, frankly.
Back in 2017, basically Jeremy Corbyn.
I think that's it. I thought I had more. But let's carry on. So we've now got Keir Starmer in the Telegraph. What date's this? Left-wingers blame Starmer for party exodus. All this party exodus is now joining the Workers' Party. Momentum campaign group accuse party leader of prompting alarming drop in membership. Don't forget, Momentum is planning on joining the Workers' Party. By Camilla Turner, chief political correspondent at the Telegraph. This is 17th of August 2022, so this is only 4 days ago. Momentum has blamed Sir Keir Starmer for losing nearly 100,000 members, with left-wing MPs piling pressure on the party leader over his stance on strikes. Don't forget what George had said and what the other fella had said on the Workers' Party. Let's see what... alarm as Labour loses nearly 100,000 members last year. So they're down to 200,000 as the Workers' Party rocket soars. Ashley Coburn and Michael Broomhead Wednesday, and this is MSN Wales Online. Concerns have been raised after Labour's latest annual accounts showed the party lost nearly 100,000 members last year. The fall in fee-paying activists led to Labour's income from membership declining from 19.3 million to 16.3 million in the same year, a drop of around more than 3 million. Don't forget also the trade unions are jumping ship to join Georgie Porgie's. Momentum's joining jumping ship to join Georgie Porgie's Workers' Party. Everybody's joining the Workers' Party. The membership, 100,000 members, a large proportion of them are going to the Workers' Party. At the end of 2020, total membership stood at 523,302, but fell by more than 91,000 to 432,213 in December 2021. The accounts published by the Electoral Commission reveal that while the party did increase private donations, it also ended this year with a deficit exceeding £5 million. Left-wing campaign group Momentum also connected to the Workers' Party, which was set up under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership, which is now Jeremy Corbyn jumping ship to the Workers' Party, called the statistics alarming. Members of the group said Sir Keir Starmer's failure to stand by the 10 pledges during the 2020 leadership campaign had prompted an exodus of members to the Workers' Party of Great Britain and a financial crisis for the party, reports the Mirror. Former Shadow Chancellor John MacDonald also told the Mirror the massive wave of resignations is a financial hit for Labour, but also a huge political hit as well. Hit as these people... Oh, where did that go? As these people who are our electoral asset, who are now all joining the Workers' Party, that gave us such an advantage over the Tories in getting out the vote. There's a message here for the Labour leadership about disillusionment of so many of our members and supporters, he added, who are all now joining the Workers' Party. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Why did you get that rid of that? That's a bit weird, that thing here. I think that goes up here like that. What was that? That's weird. How's that? That's a bit strange. How did you get that up here? That is weird. Don't know how you move that. Anyway, in its report, Labour described 2021 as a difficult and demanding year. as the country adapted to the impact of COVID, with the party having difficult discussions and decisions. Party finances do remain challenging, with pressure on income coinciding with increased costs. The report stated it added that action taken by the party to manage costs included reverting to more traditional middle election cycle models after years of remaining on an election footing. The one-off cost of voluntary servants scheme surveillance scheme contributed to the deficit result, which required the allocation of cash reserves to fund. For the avoidance of doubt, the party remains debt-free. Hilary Shachen, coordinator Momentum, said Keir Starmer's pledge breaking the fractional approach has prompted an exodus. Breaking the factional approach has prompted an exodus of Labour members to the Workers' Party and financial crisis for the party. If Starmer wants to get Labour back on the right track, he should start by properly supporting the affiliated trade unions also joining the Workers' Party and striking workers fighting to defend their livelihoods, where with the pressure that Rishi Sunak did by printing more money and causing inflation, and basically they had to strike for their livelihoods and the depreciation on the living standards. A Labour Party spokesman said thanks to Sir Keir Starmer's firm leadership and clear commitment to taking Labour back into power, the party is on track to return to a firm financial footing. Well, it doesn't sound that to me, with commercial income and donations rising significantly. Yeah, it sounds like a disaster if you ask me. Here we go. So this is in the Sunday Times on the 21st, so that's today. Labour loses nearly 100,000 members. The Labour Party lost nearly 100,000 members of its members last year and ended a difficult and demanding 12 months. £5 million in the red. Accounts published by the Electoral Commission show its membership dropped from 523,332 in 2020 to 432,213 as Sir Keir Starmer was caught in a standoff with the left of his party, who are all joining the Workers' Party, as we've all said. This is why the Workers' Party is soaring. Jeremy Corbyn's moving, the trade unions are moving, the workers are feeling more supported by the Workers' Party than they are by the Labour Party. The party lost £3 million in fees as former members all joined the Workers' Party voted with their feet, which made up most of the £5 million financial deficit. So this is how the Workers' Party are going to finance the 632 potential MP candidates for the next general election. However, the amount raised in donations increased, and I think the trade unions are going to start funding the Workers' Party as well by more than £4 million for the year before, with a total of 9.9 million brought in last year. About 2.5 million was spent on voluntary redundancy schemes to try to bring costs down in the long term, and the party ended the year with 93 fewer staff. That's progress than previous year. There may be more financial woes ahead for Labour as Unite, the union and the party's biggest donor, has threatened to withdraw any remaining financial support and fund the Workers' Party. So the Unite are potentially going to jump to, and other unions are potentially going to jump to Georgie Porgie Galloway's Workers' Party, as well as Jeremy Corbyn and Ken Livingstone. And Momentum and a lot of the youth in the Labour Party. Starmer has put himself at odds with the unions over his positions on workers' strikes. That's why George and the other guys are on course to mop up that, raising the prospect that other party backers could follow suit and join the Workers' Party. The spokesman said thanks to Keir Starmer's firm leadership and clear commitment to taking Labour back into power, the party is on track to returning to is on track to returning. Come on, Sunday Times, that's not correct grammar. To a firm financial footing, with commercial income and donations raising significantly. Although membership numbers have dropped, the income from membership fees was comparable to 2017 and 2018, leading to suggestions that it was those who have taken advantage of cheap joining fees under Jeremy Corbyn who may have left, or they jumped ship and joined the cheap joining fees to the Workers' Party, which has seen the Workers' Party's finances explode. A Labour Party source said the change in membership reflects that the party is being reshaped around the leader, which is perfectly normal. Predictably, the membership of those who only joined for Jeremy Corbyn, obviously Jeremy Corbyn moving to the Workers' Party, and the membership are going to move with that as well, has proved short-lived. However, Hilary co-chairwoman of Momentum campaign group, also is going to join the Workers' Party, formed under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership, said that it was Stammer's pledge-breaking factional approach that had prompted members to leave. Oh, here we go. The leadership has welcomed these departures while actively alienating Labour's affiliate trade unions, all of which go into the Workers' Party, which gave millions to the party. She said, if Stammer wants to get Labour back on track, he should start by properly supporting the affiliated trade unions, which is not going to happen, which is why they're going to the Workers' Party, and striking workers fighting to defend the livelihood, which Stammer's rejected anyone that goes and stands on a picket line, any Labour MP, but all the Workers' Party MPs or potential MPs are standing with the workers. That's why they're all jumping ship like Unite to the Workers' Party. The Conservative Party had a £300,000 surplus in its latest accounts. Donations to the party rose by more than £3 million, and income from membership fees stays roughly the same at £1.9 million. Well, let's just see if you guys are saying anything. Have you guys... I don't trust PA and Mark, really, man. Should hang out sometime, mate, in King Park. Yeah, whenever you want, mate. Let us know. I hope you enjoyed that. We've now got the rise... the rise of the Workers' Party, and I'll come on to some of the other stuff later on. Love my baby gorillas.